Connection from the Illinois State Capitol.
Welcome back. 3 candidates are fighting to become Illinois' next top lawyer. Democrat State Senator Kwame Raoul replaced then State Senator Barack Obama when he vacated his seat in Springfield. Now Raoul hopes he's next in line to replace another iconic name in the state Democratic Party, Lisa Madigan, the daughter of the House Speaker and the current Attorney General. Raoul is the current frontrunner in the early polls, but faced a tough test on Tuesday when he sat down and took direct, tough questions from his rival, Republican Erica Harold. The Chicago Sun-Times hosted the forum, and it may be one of the very few times we see each of these candidates face to face. And you might say it was as advertised. Nearly half of the entire hour-long forum was dedicated just to the candidates duking it out over their own campaign commercials.
I want him to account for why that's on the air still when it has been rated as false.
In their first face-to-face matchup, Republican Erica Harold called on Democrat Kwame Raoul to take this ad off the air.
We know she'd discriminate against a loving gay couple who want to adopt a child.
The ad predicts Harold's future behavior based on 3 anonymous sources from 20 years ago when she was 19. Tuesday, Harold was asked if the Supreme Court one day reverses its stance on gay marriage, would you discriminate against a gay couple seeking adoption?
Of course not. And I want to hear some evidence still. You have an ad on the air that's defamatory.
You first said, I don't recall making a statement. Then you said, well, if I did make this statement, I've evolved from that. Your credibility has to be questioned.
Senator Raoul took issue with this attack ad, linking him to Speaker Mike Madigan.
Raoul teamed up with Madigan to raise property taxes.
PolitiFact rated the ad mostly false.
I've never worked on a property tax appeals case in my life. I've never been at a firm that did any such work, but the insinuation in these commercials is that I've engaged in that type of activity.
Raoul argued in Madigan's defense, property tax appeals lawyers should not have to forfeit their seat in Springfield. Harold calls it a conflict of interest and says they should.
People have written series about the property tax appeals process and the flaws and inherent conflicts of interest. And if somebody wants to continue serving in the legislature, they just shouldn't do property tax appeals. If they want to do property tax appeals, they shouldn't serve in the legislature. We're not telling them which one to choose, but we're saying choose the people's interest and don't maintain this conflict of interest.
Superstar Erica Harold.
Harold faces questions about her own allegiances. After she targeted the governor's arch nemesis in her campaign ads, Raoul wondered if she would use the power of her office to lock him up.
When the governor gave Ms. Harold $1 million, he said he's supporting Ms. Harold so she can prosecute the speaker. When asked, prosecute for what? He said, I hope he's committed a crime. That is dangerous. The Attorney General's office should not be used to carry out the vendettas against your political adversaries.
Harold said she would not target political opponents, but would not back down her criticism of the speaker's side business as a property tax attorney.
I think the voters would agree with me that it is a scheme. It's a scheme by which people are able to set property tax policy within the legislature. They are then able to run side businesses and actually be able to profit handsomely as a result of that. I would argue that it's your job, if you were running for Attorney General, to be able to confront those issues. I would also argue that if you're in the legislature, it is your job to stand up and to try to advocate on behalf of the people who need you to break up that scheme. I argue it is a scheme, and I stand by that. And I stand by the fact that Senator Raoul was, instead of actually trying to do something to change that system, was the chief co-sponsor with Madigan of a bill that would have only exacerbated this problem.
Also in the room, political newcomer, Libertarian Bubba Harsey, in search of his own breakout moment.
Illinois and Chicago have some of the toughest, most restrictive gun laws in the nation. I don't think just continuing to outlaw guns is going to get us where we need to be. If it did, we could outlaw cancer, we could outlaw AIDS, we could outlaw diabetes, and it would fix those problems. So if we're not going to start holding our bad acting police officers accountable, we can pass as many consent decrees as we want, and it's not going to change anything. We need to start holding cops accountable to the same standard of law like regular citizens are held to.
At the end of the day, all 3 candidates agreed on one thing.
I believe in the legalization of marijuana across the board.
I do support legalizing marijuana for a variety of reasons. First of all, I think there's some economic benefits for the state of Illinois to be able to obtain.
I think today's marijuana is not your granddaddy's marijuana. It comes in all sorts of potencies, and it's marketed in all sorts of forms in terms of gummy bears, soda pops, and things like that that could be targeted towards children. And I think we would need some regulations surrounding that.
A legal fight over the abortion expansion measure Governor Rauner signed into law over great political peril to himself is headed now to the Supreme Court in the state. Pro-life activists argue that the new law is void because of a deadline technicality on how the state issues funding. All three judges at the 4th District Appellate Court in Illinois were unconvinced. They upheld a lower court ruling that protects the abortion law and its funding. The court said it should not have to answer political questions about legislative processes in Springfield. Up next, a look behind the curtain at the Pritzker campaign. Why J.B. Pritzker is starting to sound a little bit more like a smooth, shifty political operator when it comes to his past statements on how to solve the state's pension crisis.